To order.
Oh, you did? I'd like to open. All right, I'd like to open the town council meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance over there. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, could you do a roll call?
Here. Counselor Cook? Here. Counselor Janet? Here. Counselor Edwards?
Here.
Counselor DiMederos?
Here.
Counselor Perry and Counselor Burke?
And they both send their apologies. Councilor Perry's not feeling well this evening. And Councilor Burke told me I could tell you this. He had an exposure yesterday, and he's taking caution and not coming today.
Okay, and likewise, Ms. Palish and Ms. Pay were not able to come, and Dr. Sanchioni was coming, but he had a family issue come up. Have you guys opened?
Nope,
Can
I
you do
was
that? Okay.
waiting. So I'll call the Budget Committee joint workshop meeting to order. And just quickly, I'll do the roll for us as well. So Dan Darren, Dave Perry, John Edwards is here, Mike Janik. Here. Cynthia Isherwood.
Here.
And Joe Souza and Tom Haley are not here, and Judy Jones is absent. We have an 8-member board currently because of 3 vacancies, so we do have a quorum.
And John, as you all know, we did get an application for Budget Committee, so it's looking better. And there's talk about at least one more. So hopefully you'll have a quorum very shortly. I'd like to stop because I want
Can we do names
to-
before we do that?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Jerry would like us all to introduce ourselves. I think they know you,
You're
Joan.
an
but go
elected
ahead.
official.
Chris Carter, Town Administrator.
Denise DiMederos, Town Council President.
Jay Edwards, Counselor.
Deb Janet, Counselor. Donna Cook, Counselor.
Bill Vieira, Town Council.
Mike Dakotas, School Committee.
Jerry Larkin, School Committee.
Diane Farnworth, School Committee.
Amy Carter, Director of Finance for the School Department.
Dan Darren, Budget Committee.
Henry, Budget Committee. John Edwards, Chair of the Budget Committee.
Mike Janik, Budget Committee.
Cindy Isherwood, Budget Committee.
And just one other item to note, we did hold our meeting, and we had our elections prior to this meeting, so the outcome of that was myself as chair, Mr. Perry as vice chair, Mr. Darren as secretary, and then because Tom Haley's not present, he was anointed docket secretary.
Poor Tom. Congratulations to all of you. We passed this out earlier. We just wanted the Budget Committee to be aware of what has happened since we've all seen each other last. As you know, the gaming monies were allocated for non-operational capital projects to provide funding for long deferred projects and an indirect tax relief. On 10/18/21 and 11/8/21, the Town Council authorized $2 million of the $33,100,000 for long-term deferred school system capital needs. On 10/18, the Tiverton Town Council authorized $1,100,000 of the $3,100,000 for municipal operational capital. On the next page is exactly what we did. We collaborated with the school committee, had a few meetings. The town council did make these decisions. On 10/18, we're going to refurbish restrooms for the cost of $850,000, siding Ranger School, dishwasher Tiverton High School, steamer Tiverton Middle School, lights for the Tiverton High School track, lawnmowers, tennis court, windscreen, and an intercom system for THS. Those of you that have been on the Budget Committee for some time, and even last year, realized that a lot of these were things that we did not put in the budget and things that were deferred for many years, and the Town Council felt that these were the most important. Approved on 11/18 was additional restrooms for 682. And that came out to a grand total of $2 million. And that's hopefully the school committee is getting is looking into it, but hopefully we'll be able to get most of the restrooms completed. Dave, do you have any questions before I go, or I didn't know if you had no?
We're just looking at some of the things that were asked for last year, and
It doesn't, it's not,
We were just looking at some of the items that got approved and what was asked for last year. I'd have a question on the lights. There was one that was broke. Why are we putting in 4?
Jerry, do you want to answer that?
I'm
or
sorry,
would
what's
you-
the question?
On the lights for the Tiverton High School track.
So the details are a little long, but basically, one came down in the wind, the other was found to be structurally unsound, and therefore then came down. And then the best price we got was a proposal from National Grid to come in, refurbish the entire lighting system, new lights that are going to have a cost benefit, and then some of that actually they will amortize over several years. So that's to be worked out with the treasurer. And just to sort of tag on to what Denise was saying, our first building committee meeting is going to be January 12th.
Chris was the one that contacted Narragansett Electric because we found the one light was very expensive, and if you look at the price, we're replacing many more for almost the same price.
So if I remember right, the one pole was like $140,000.
Yeah.
And they would have had, and that lighting system goes back, I want to say like 2008.
2008.
somewhere in there.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
on the school
They're
committee.
antiquated lights, so they would upgrade, Grid will upgrade all those lights to LED modern lights. They'll get twice the lighting out of it. It'll be cheaper to run. At the end of the day, at twice the cost of fixing one pole, we got all 4 of them done and have modernized the system, and it'll be a much better asset for the community
And-
use as a whole.
And to the point as well, there's now actually more of a corporate trail to follow. So we had one of our citizens, Jeff Soa, graciously tried to pursue the original installers legally, and there had been several changes of corporate ownership and, the story. So ultimately, we were not able, I think we got some insurance, I think, on one of them, but ultimately, we were not able to go after the people that had put the lights in the first place, which I guess they seemed a little sketchy when it happened, from what I heard. I
Can I ask
wasn't
a
around.
follow-up question on the lights?
Sure.
So when you say is it 290,000 one time and that amount is being paid out over a period of time, or is it 290,000 now and then this year there's more money?
$290,000 is the total.
The
estimate.
amortization piece that you mentioned threw me for a second.
Right, so that I think is something that we have to work with the treasurer to figure out if that's to the town's advantage.
We have talked to the, go
Grid
ahead.
would take it over time, if I remember right. It's a-
Yeah.
I think a
Right.
3-year payment schedule.
Uh-huh.
So we would earmark this money to be restricted for those particular payments.
Okay.
It'd be like a lease payment, kind of.
Thank you.
So the Tiverton Town Council approved municipal capital projects. The recycling center, $650,000. Assessor tax IT systems, $80,000. Town clerk IT systems, $45,000. Police administration cars, $135,000. The police dog truck, $15,000. Fire open door quint, $15,000. Fire forestry vehicle, $35,000. Fire radio call boxes, $35,000. Library capital, $15,000. DPW motor, $35,000, and contingency, $40,000.
So the council gave up to $1.1 million. So all those numbers wound up being $1,060,000. That's where the 40 came from. So we won't know until we actually go off competitive bidding. Some of that monies might be used to help offset some costs.
So I want to thank the school committee. I think we worked pretty well together. And I've said this until exhaustion, but I'll say it again. This comes right out of the casino money. It is not taxed for the people. There is no long-term taxation on this. And this is what the town council thought would be the best thing to do with this money at this point. And some of you that have been on the budget committee or been part of the town realize that a lot of this has been deferred for so many years, and we're actually doing something with the money, and taxes will not go up. This is paid for. Now, of course, we got CARES funding, which was a lot of talk back then. Municipal only received this. Jerry, you received
That's a one, I think. That's-
ESSA 1 money.
We've received ESSER 1, ESSER 2, we've put the application in for, and I don't think we've heard anything about ESSER 3 yet.
ESSER 3 application is due January 31st.
Okay.
So that's not included in this because we don't have that information, but I'm sure the school committee would be more than willing to tell you how they spent that money. But for the CARES funding, police overtime, $50,000. And this was all the overtime due to COVID and everything that went on. Fire time, police and fire radios. We bought an ambulance for $260,000. Fire overtime, $75,000. And municipal-wide PPE cost about $15,000 for a grand total of $450,000. We've been needing the ambulance. It was due to be replaced. Think about it now. We didn't have to go out for a bond for it. We paid for it cash. And a lot of the citizens wish that that's what we did when we did a survey. This does lower taxes. People don't realize this, but these are needs that we had to do and eventually would have been part of the taxation. So I want to thank the entire town council and especially Chris. It took a lot of work to find all of this, to get this together, and thank the school committee, and I think this will help the citizens in the long run. Mike?
Yes, Denise. Do the police fire radios, does that include upgrading, the renovating of that room,
No.
the
This
communication
is
room?
an immediate need. We're out to bid right now for a complete overhaul of the radio communication system. That will probably more in the $850,000 range. This is immediate needs to get them some radios that are severely deficient right now, that don't operate, that don't work, lack of communication totally. This will get them over a little bit of a hurdle, at least until we get the bids in for the communication system. And that communication system will be funded through a variety of different methods of being funded. One will be through the American Recovery Funds. We've got a grant funding out through the fire department, the AFG grant to do that. And we're currently working with Senator Reed's office on part of the infrastructure bill for radio communications as well. So we're trying to put a number of different funding pieces together to mitigate. What we have is a long-standing system that is antiquated, outdated, unsupportable, and we need to get the fire department on something that's stable and consistent, and we need to upgrade all the old equipment that the police department inherited from North Providence when they threw it away about 12 years ago. So we're doing what we can to get the radio systems back up to where they should be.
I appreciate that. That's great. My concern was just that communications room was definitely in need of overhaul.
It is.
The physical room itself.
So there's a number of different things as we're looking at this project. We may be looking at putting in, there is already a building over next to the tower that we would air condition and heat and move some of the new integrated technology over to there. But the serviceable centers, we're looking at probably 4 of them to be brought over into a unified dispatch center.
Nice. Good. Thank you.
John?
So,
Hopefully you can hear me. So, given the fact that we're discussing the fiscal year 2022 and 2023 budget, has the council and has the school committee scheduled their own budget hearings? So I know we have the 1/15 date coming up for the preliminary, and then obviously you guys work and do revisions throughout. So one of the items that we had discussed at our meeting prior to this was deferring our weekly meetings until we get a little bit further down the process. I just was curious as to where both the school committee and the town council stood as far as scheduling those budget hearings so we can get a little bit closer to the final numbers, and then the budget committee we can do our thing.
Well, the
So-
town
Yeah,
council, our budget is still a work in progress, of course, and it is until almost the final end. Chris is working on that now. We have to put that on the agenda this week.
We didn't, but we will.
We didn't. We did the
we'll
agenda.
modify the agenda to add a tentative initial budget.
And then after that, then I'll have to talk to the council. As you know, we usually do weekly budget hearings, sometimes on Saturday, sometimes on an off night. But once Chris gives us that, then I'll start to schedule it. We're hoping, and this is my hope, our capital, obviously, our capital budget, the only thing that we have on there right now is the fire truck that was approved last year. And my hopes, and I'm sure the council's with me, is that we won't have a lot of capital, but I'm hoping we have no capital needs this year because we were able to do this. And of course, we have to talk about further casino money, and we're working on that also. But hopefully, I think this works, and hopefully, if everyone agrees, we can continue doing this and having capital funds so that we don't have to taxate.
So for speaking with the school committee, I guess, we've had a first draft submitted by the superintendent at our last meeting in December. We have a full meeting next week devoted to the budget, and as with every year, it's as with the council, it's something of a work in progress. And I just want to acknowledge last year, I don't think there's anything such thing as a non-contentious budget cycle in Tiverton. I'm actually take that as an article of faith at this point. But at the beginning of this season last year, and I'll say it again, we all want a town that's well served, that our employees are appreciated, that we have good roads and fire and police protection, and that the schools are robust and give our children a good education. I think we all want that. I think there's a lot we will all agree on, and of course there's some things that we will disagree on, but I believe that we were able to go through the process with respect and transparency, and certainly I would hope that for this year as well. We have a meeting next Tuesday that will be devoted even more to the budget, and then we'll go from there. I can tell you right now, unfortunately, our state aid is probably going to drop again to the tune of about $700,000, which is something more than 2% of our operating budget, getting close to 3%. So, and you never know what the legislature is going to do, but the funding formula, speaks for itself. It's not even that the legislature can actually alter that unless they decide to give us more money for some other reason. And it might be worthwhile, actually, before you guys really get into the weeds of it, if you want, we can have a meeting with you guys and sort of just walk through it. Amy's, got a good grasp of the funding formula itself, because it's driven by very objective measures, and that's what results in that drop. So that creates a structural deficit right up front for our budget. That's piled on to loss last year, which then took away some of the increase we did have last year in the budget, and then of course the year before that it was zero. So it's not terribly rosy news so far. So.
Thank you. Yeah, no, we just, our committee, our intention is not to, have meetings just for the sake of having meetings. So, the sooner we know when we actually need to meet to have legitimate discussions, I think, would be helpful, because, there's, as we discussed at our meeting, there's no, if we're not going to have, numbers or departments to talk to or any of that stuff out of the gates, then there's no reason for us to hold a meeting. So we just want to be wise with our time and move, expeditiously through the process. And so we'll wait for both the council and the school committee to, give us something tangible so that we can start our work.
Diane, you want to?
We will take a vote for a preliminary budget request next week to be in line with the charter requirement that we do so. And then Dr. Sanquioni has proposed a series of presentations to be made to the school committee over the next several meetings. That'll be a deep dive into the various topics. At this point, I'm not sure when we'll be at the end of those topics and how much back and forth they'll need to take place, but certainly we will be on camera and going through all of it in nitty-gritty as we go.
John, also, the auditor's report, I'm hoping to get them in next week at the town council meeting, and they'll go through where we are next week, and then we'll get a copy of that to you. I talked to the treasurer today, and the unassigned right now is $3,506,697. That may change a little with tweaking, but it's very close to that.
Okay.
So that's what the unassigned in the general fund is at this point.
That's without the reduction of the 3%.
That's without the reduction of the 3%, of course. And Chris figured out the 3% comes out to about 1.6.
1.65.
I have a question for both school committee and council, probably Chris. We spoke last year about COVID funds that were due to the town, and I don't know if there's any COVID money coming to the schools.
That would be the
So the CARES money is what we consider to be our COVID money.
Yes.
And then that's the $450,000 that came in about the same time they got their SO1 monies. That came in out of the CARES Act, Federal Government CARES Act. So the American Recovery monies that have come in, we've received half of it. I believe it's 4.7 million, I believe, total.
Yeah.
That, there are, again, restrictions with that. The council has not weighed in on that yet, but the lion's share of those would be for one-time capital expenditures. We looked at it, we deferred about $3.5 million in expenditures out of the town's municipal side of the budget in order to balance the budget. Over the last FY 20 and 21, those count as lost revenues, and they can be utilized for reinstituting those programs that were lost. Because we historically knocked out the lion's share with capital, some of those capital needs are still desperately needed, and that's what we'll be looking at trying to replenish. There'll be some public hearings on the residual piece of 4.7 plus the 3.4 million, I think it is, that will need public input from. But there are some categories that we would be utilizing. When we just looked at under putting the recycling center in the industrial park, there is some sewering that needs to be done. There's some sewering down on Bay Street that needs to be done. There's some IT infrastructure, whether it be broadband that we can bring in to get off of some of our Cox lines that we really need to do for police. So some of those things we'll be looking at, and I'll get a plan together for you so you can see that, but it will all be vetted through the town council before it gets adopted.
In terms of the money the school received, so ESSER 1 was about $540,000, I want to say, and wasn't thinking we're going to be talking this detail tonight, but all of that went to the COVID mitigation that we had to put in place in order to open the schools in fall 2020. Yeah, fall 2020. The years are blurring, and actually didn't even meet that shortfall, and some of it was actually used to reduce the state aid. So ESSER 1, so-called, was a wash. ESSER 2 is about $1.7 million. It's very restricted, has to go towards COVID mitigation, social and emotional health, learning loss, and help me, what's the fourth one? Digital divide. So there's very specific restrictions, and that's how it's been allocated to date. ESSER 2, as Amy was alluding to, the application's due, and we're going to be looking at that at our meeting on Tuesday.
So I just have, from the Budget Committee, one follow-up question as well, or one ask of both the school and the town is, as you guys are scheduling these meetings to go through your budget, when you know that those meetings exist, if you could, communicate that with us, so I can at least make sure the rest of the membership is
Well,
aware. And
Absolutely.
Yeah,
in an ideal scenario, we'll have somebody, at least, one or two or multiple of us there present in the audience, so we can kind of get a primer before we actually meet.
There's nothing that would preclude you from actually meeting jointly with us during any of those meetings if you had a quorum present and wanted to. And I can ask our clerk to send the same email notification to you guys of what our agenda is.
That would be fantastic. At least that way, the rest, the committee here knows, and, we don't, we don't
The
go.
same with us,
yeah,
John.
We don't go
We'll
into it.
notify you.
You know.
Would any of
We'll
the
try to
coun-
eliminate questions when we have our formal discussions.
Would any of the councils like to add anything? No?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mike, Diane?
Any other questions?
Yeah, Chris, I have one more. I read a while back that the police department was going to receive a grant for $210,000.
Yep.
So they have a COPS grant that they had applied for, I think it's a 3-year window that would subsidize 2 offices. But that'll be fully vetted out on Monday night's council meeting.
Is that for police cruisers also, or?
No, it's just for the staff.
But we did get a
We did-
police,
we did-
we did get a grant for the cruises last
So
year.
we've done 2 grants for cruisers, and we've done 1 grant for administrative cars. So we've purchased 4
Was it 4? Yeah.
And the
4
library
cruisers.
goes to-
I believe there's 1 dog truck and at least 4 administrative cars, I think, at the moment.
Yeah, that's in here.
And the grants were done through USDA. They were 35% match grants. I think each one brought back $56,000 to the community for every $150 that we spent. So we did pretty good with that. I think we got $150 grand back.
Okay,
And we're looking at trying to do some more grants.
good. Thank you.
We get the senior bus on that too.
The senior
That was-
bus was the year before, right?
That
Yeah.
was the first 2 cruises.
It was 2 cruises and a senior bus the year before, all through grants.
But we did get it. They were matching grants.
Right.
So if I may, just one more question. I'll go down the line and see if anybody else from the budget committee has any questions that we haven't addressed. Mr. Darren, Mr. Perry, I have no more questions. Mr. Janik?
I'm good.
Ms. Isherwood?
No.
All set? Okay. So we're good on our end with questions. I don't know if there was any more discussion that needed to occur, but
If I may, I'd like to open the floor to Mike or Diane if you guys have anything else to say.
No, I have nothing else tonight.
The only thing that I had was, do we want to talk about any of the ESSER funds that we have for the ESSER 2, or, I know there's a bullet point in here. Do we want to talk about what we're,
I think that's going to be at our, yeah.
okay, so want to
I
let
would- I
them
would-
at least know that that's on the agenda?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a quorum, but that's it.
You asked that question, Dave, correct? So ours is on the agenda for next week.
Is the town council all set? Chris?
So the only other major item, and I'm sure the schools have the same issue that's going to be driving at them throughout this next budget cycle, is we have 3 union negotiations coming up. It's Teamsters, ASME, and IAFF. So you should be aware of those because there are some significant issues with at least one of them.
We're in the middle of
And we're going to
both.
start those very soon.
So we're in the middle of negotiating with NEA and Council 94. So the NEA's actually expired. They're just working under the conditions of the old contract. So we have to execute that within the next few months. So same. And there's always inflation, so.
all right. Well, if you guys are good, I mean, are we good to adjourn?
Yeah.
Okay, so do I have should we go reverse order?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so do I have a motion to adjourn from the budget
moved.
committee? So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Janik. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn the school committee?
Second.
Any opposed? We're adjourned. This is my 10th meeting. This has probably been the best discussion we've had
Yeah.
at this.
I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion's been made and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, everyone. It was a very good meeting.
Thank you.